Okay, we're back talking about real estate with Yale economist Robert Shiller, leading authority on the housing market and co-creator of the closely watched Case-Shiller Index. So, Robert, what do you think about Canada when you hear about our housing market, particularly places like Toronto and Vancouver?
Well, Canada is like the U.S., many different places, and they don't all do the same thing. I think Vancouver looks like part of California to me, in terms of its real estate volatility, at least. Canada, to me, it has behaved more differently than I would have thought. People attribute to your banking institutions not fueling a bubble. But it looks like Canada is, it didn't have the crash that we had in the U.S. It's just continuing to grow, and it's accumulating into some big price increases. So it's looking like the bubble is still, or has been, at least until recently, is still alive in Canada.
You call it a bubble. You think it's a bubble?
Well, I don't know. I shouldn't be coming outside as an outsider and calling
It's too late. You used the word. Anyway, look. You mentioned California, comparing Vancouver to California. We had a graph that you actually created for us based on some data. Let's put that up again and talk about specifically Vancouver with San Francisco. Let's get that. There it is. Okay, so we see Vancouver in blue and we see San Francisco in red. What is this exactly telling us?
Well, it looks like Vancouver is San Francisco lagged some few years, right? And the total increase. San Francisco, by the way, is a bubble city that's talked about as one of the major boom and collapse cities in the U.S. Californians are known for that. They go up and down. They're emotional people, but they're no different in Vancouver. In fact, it's worse in Vancouver. See, and this is inflation corrected. The only thing I did to these charts is make them start at the same 100 in 1990 and then do an inflation correction. So I have Vancouver doubling, even correcting for inflation in 22 years. That's bigger than San Francisco did. So it kind of makes you wonder, where is Vancouver going now? I'll tell you one thing, I'm not investing in Vancouver real estate right now, not me.
Okay, but what about the fact that interest rates are still at historic lows, that, they're scratching the bottom, it doesn't look like they're going up anywhere anytime soon. We still have immigrants coming to places like Vancouver and Toronto. You have in Toronto 50 or 100,000 new people coming every year.
Right, that's the same thing they say in California. It's the same West Coast. They tend to be Asian. That's happening, right. And home prices are going up on the other side of the ocean, too. They were until recently in Beijing and Shanghai. But these things have a habit of not fulfilling expectations. And right now, China is slowing down, too. So if you're talking about Asian support for Canadian housing markets, it's just not so secure, not such a safe bet.
Is the issue the prices, or is the issue the affordability for people?
I would say the issue is sociology. Economists are getting back to that very belatedly. It's about how culture changes and how people get excited about housing. They get excited about Vancouver. It's a beautiful city, by the way. And so it's a nice place to live. But you got to get it straight. Just because it's a nice place to live doesn't mean that prices are just going to go up there forever. And when they get sufficiently high, people will say, I'm not going to do it. And that's when it breaks.
And what about Toronto? Because I think you created a graph for us about Toronto, too, where we see condos sprouting like weeds all over the place. But you've compared Toronto to Boston. And here's that graph. We've got Toronto in blue and Boston in red. Not quite as dramatic as what we saw in the other one, but what do you see here?
Yeah, well, the point is Boston has gone through a big bubble and burst since 1998. Toronto has just been slow and steady up, but if you accumulate it over all these years, again, this is in real terms, this is corrected for inflation. Toronto has gone up a lot. And so you could see that correcting down too, as Boston did.
How much
circumstances.
How much did Boston correct?
I don't have the number in front of me, but it was something like 30%. in real terms.
I'm just playing
There's a big downward correction.
Sorry, I'm just playing a bit of devil's advocate here. I mean, Toronto has a very vibrant financial sector that you alluded to earlier. Boston has a certain amount of that, but nothing like. It's not the New York of the United States. Are they apt comparisons, Toronto and Boston?
I think so. They feel the same to me. I don't know. Boston is not the New York, but it has a big financial sector too. And Boston is a technology center, so it's a glamour city in the U.S. See, Toronto's another glamour city. Glamour cities are more bubble prone than run-of-the-mill standard cities. If you have celebrities living there, you know, if people go there on vacation tours, that's where the psychology brings on bubble. But you know, Toronto doesn't look like a sudden bubble. It looks so steady. I don't quite understand it.
One last question on this before we go to break again. Gordon Nixon, the CEO of our biggest bank, Royal Bank, was speaking in London today, and he said that RBC's exposure to Toronto and Vancouver condo markets is, quote, limited. When he says that, I guess that implies that those condo markets are overheated.
Well, it could be. Condo markets tend to be volatile too, I think. They're so easy to invest in.
So you wouldn't buy one in either city now?
No, no. No, not for me.
All right. Well,
of course, if you want to live there, you know, if I had a family and wanted to live there, of course I would. You know, it's not like I'm giving you a strong forecast. I don't know what these cities are going to do. They could keep going up. I really don't know.
All right, we'll take another break. That's okay. We'll come back and talk about another concept of yours right after this. Please stay with us. You're watching Headline on BNN. We'll be right back with Robert Shiller of Yale.